There comes a moment in life when you look into someone's eyes, the person you've poured your heart into, and you realize they're gone. Not physically, not yet, but emotionally, spiritually, soulfully, they've already walked away. And if you ignore the signs, if you dismiss the truth, you will chase shadows, waste your power, and lose yourself in the process. Today, I want you to understand this with absolute clarity. When an avoidant partner does this one thing, they are coming back. And when you see it, you must stop, shift your energy, and take your life back. Because you were never meant to live in chains of confusion, begging for breadcrumbs of love. You were born for freedom, connection, and truth. When an avoidant first pulls away, it often feels temporary. They need space, they need time, they need to breathe. That's what you tell yourself. And in many cases, that's true. Avoidants are wired to retreat when intimacy feels overwhelming, when closeness feels like a trap, when vulnerability feels unsafe. In those moments, their walls are like a defense mechanism, a shield to protect themselves from the fear of being consumed or rejected. But here's what you must understand. There comes a point when those walls are no longer a temporary pause. They become permanent. They stop being a protective measure and start becoming a lifestyle. When you're dealing with an avoidant in this stage, the energy shifts dramatically. You'll notice that their distance doesn't just feel like they're taking time to recharge. It feels like they're building a new home inside that wall, brick by brick, and they have no intention of stepping out. At first, you'll think they just need time, they'll come back. But watch carefully. The tone changes. The wall stops being a safe boundary and turns into a permanent barrier between you and them. This is when you must recognize the truth, because if you miss it, you'll keep waiting for a door that no longer exists. When the walls are permanent, they stop engaging in repair. They stop caring about misunderstandings. They don't check if you're okay anymore. The connection is no longer something they're protecting. It's something they're abandoning. And here's the harsh reality. Once that wall hardens, nothing you say, nothing you do, no amount of proving your worth, begging for love, or reminding them of the past can break it down. Because in their mind, the relationship no longer represents safety, it represents a threat they've already decided to escape. This is why so many people get stuck in cycles of false hope. They confuse temporary withdrawal with permanent disconnection. They wait weeks, months, sometimes years, thinking the avoidant will finally soften, finally come back through those doors. But the truth is, once the walls become permanent, their return is no longer part of their plan. And the danger is, the longer you wait on the other side of that wall, the more of your own energy, your own confidence, and your own power you lose. The lesson here is not to try harder to break down the wall, but to recognize when it has been cemented shut, and to realize that your freedom lies not in tearing it down, but in walking away from it. When an avoidant reaches the point where they stop seeing you and start erasing you, it is one of the clearest and most painful signs that they're never coming back. At first, the change feels subtle. You might notice their attention slipping away, their eyes glazing over when you speak, or their responses becoming shorter, colder, and less invested. What once felt like connection now feels like disinterest. But if you pay close attention, you'll see it's not just distraction, it's a deliberate withdrawal of recognition. It's as if the person you knew has put on blinders, not wanting to see you, not wanting to acknowledge your presence, not wanting to remember the bond you once shared. This erasure is brutal because it strikes at the deepest part of your heart. You remember the laughter, the intimacy, the promises, the late-night conversations. But now, when you stand before them, it's like you're invisible. They don't just pull back emotionally. They begin to rewrite the narrative of your relationship in their mind. They minimize your role, they downplay your importance, and in some cases, they act as though you never truly mattered at all. This is not about you lacking value. It's about them protecting themselves from feeling the weight of intimacy, the pressure of vulnerability, and the fear of closeness. Erasing you becomes their way of preserving the illusion of control. It hurts the most because you can feel the shift in energy. They might still be in the same room, but their eyes don't light up when they see you. They might still respond to your messages, but the warmth is gone. And if you're honest with yourself, you can feel it. You've become a shadow in their life rather than a partner. That's the moment you must understand they are not just taking space, they are actively cutting the emotional cords that tie them to you. Many people make the mistake of chasing harder when they sense this erasure. They try to remind the avoidant of the good times, send heartfelt messages, or push for conversations that will bring the closeness back. But the more you push, the more they erase, because to them, your efforts feel like pressure, and pressure confirms their fear that closeness equals suffocation. Once they cross this line, it is no longer about reconnection. It is about disconnection at all costs. If you ignore this sign, you end up fighting for visibility in someone's life who has already decided to look the other way. And the truth is, you deserve to be seen fully, deeply, and consistently. When an avoidant erases you, it's not a reflection of your worth. It's a revelation of their limits. And once you see this, you must stop waiting for recognition from someone who has chosen blindness and start reclaiming your identity outside of their gaze. One of the clearest signs that an avoidant is never coming back is when they stop fighting for the relationship. This may sound strange at first because arguments and conflicts are often seen as negative. But the truth is, when someone argues with you, when they fight, when they explain themselves, it means they still care. They're still engaged. They still see value in the connection, even if they struggle to express it in healthy ways. An argument is, in its own twisted way, a sign of investment. It shows that your presence matters enough for them to respond. But when that fire goes out, when the disagreements vanish, not because things are resolved, but because they no longer see a point in fighting, that's when you know something deeper has shifted. Avoidants often pull away when they feel overwhelmed, but many of them will still circle back. They may complain, argue, or shut down temporarily, but there's usually a cycle of distance and return. Yet the moment they stop engaging at all, the moment they no longer respond to your questions or attempt to explain themselves, you're no longer dealing with avoidance. You're dealing with detachment. And detachment is final. It's not a pause. It's not a reset. It's the quiet surrender that tells you they've checked out emotionally. Think about it. A partner who still wants the relationship will defend themselves when accused, will try to justify their actions, or at least show irritation when things aren't going smoothly. But a partner who has mentally walked away won't waste their energy. You can pour your heart out, cry, raise your voice, plead for understanding, and they'll meet it with silence or indifference. That silence is not peace, it's absence. It's the hollow space left behind when someone no longer sees the relationship as worth saving. This is often the most heartbreaking stage because it tricks you. At first, you might think the lack of conflict means progress. You might tell yourself, we're not fighting anymore, maybe things are better. But deep inside, you know the truth. It doesn't feel like peace, it feels like emptiness. It feels like trying to have a conversation with someone who has already packed their bags emotionally. And here's the hardest part. You can't argue someone back into caring. You can't breathe life into a fire that they've already chosen to extinguish. Their silence is not an invitation for you to try harder. It's a declaration that they're done. And the sooner you recognize that the absence of conflict is not harmony, but abandonment, the sooner you can stop pouring your energy into a relationship that no longer exists on their end. There's a painful moment in every relationship where you realize that even though the person is physically there, their spirit has already left. They may sit across from you at the dinner table, scroll on their phone next to you on the couch, or even lie beside you in bed, but you can feel it. Their presence is hollow. Their energy is gone, and their body has become nothing more than a placeholder for what used to be. With an avoidant, this shift is especially devastating because it doesn't happen overnight. It creeps in slowly, in small, almost invisible ways until one day you look at them and realize that the warmth, the laughter, the intimacy, the very soul of your connection is missing. In the beginning, avoidants often still try. They'll share pieces of themselves, let you in when they feel safe, and allow moments of vulnerability to slip through. But when they cross the line into complete withdrawal, those moments disappear entirely. They no longer share their inner world. They stop talking about their dreams, their fears, their frustrations. Conversations become shallow, interactions transactional. You sense that they're living in a world where you no longer exist as a partner, only as background noise. You can feel the absence in ways words can't explain. When you laugh, they don't join in. When you reach out, they don't lean in. When you look into their eyes, it feels like looking into glass. There's no spark, no recognition, no reflection of love. It's as if their spirit has already packed its bags and walked out the door, leaving their body behind as a shell. This is the point where so many people feel the deepest heartbreak, because it's not just about losing someone physically. It's about losing the soul-to-soul connection that once made the relationship alive. What makes this stage so confusing is that technically nothing big may have happened. There's no dramatic breakup scene, no explosive fight, no clear declaration of goodbye. They're still there, and that makes you hold on to hope. But hope becomes dangerous when it blinds you to reality. The truth is, presence without spirit is not real presence. It's absence disguised as togetherness. And if you don't acknowledge it, you'll find yourself clinging to a ghost, waiting for laughter that never comes back, waiting for love that has already left the room. The hardest part to accept is that once their spirit has gone, it almost never returns. You cannot ignite passion in someone who has chosen numbness. You cannot force energy into someone who has decided to shut it down. The body might remain for a time, but the soul, the essence of love, intimacy, and connection, is gone. And that's the moment you must stop waiting for their energy to return and start reclaiming your own. One of the most telling signs that an avoidant is gone for good is when the language of the relationship changes. In the beginning, everything feels like we should try this, we could go there. Well, figure it out. That little word we carries power. It signals partnership, shared vision, and a sense that two people are moving through life together. But when the avoidant shifts from we to me, that's not just a slip in language, it's a revelation of where their heart truly stands. At first, you may brush it off. They say, I'll do this, or I've been thinking about my future, and you convince yourself it's harmless. Everyone has individual goals, right? But over time, you notice the we completely disappears. Plans you once made together are suddenly being rewritten in the singular. Trips become my travel, dreams become my career, and even decisions that once involved you are now made as if you don't exist. This isn't independence, it's disconnection. Independence can still honor a bond, but disconnection erases it altogether. What makes this shift so devastating is that it often happens quietly. You may not even notice it until one day you realize you're no longer part of their vision. You used to be included in their stories, their plans, their dreams. Now you feel like an outsider looking in, as if you're standing on the sidelines of a life that no longer has a place for you. The avoidant has rewritten the script, and in this new version, you're no longer a main character. This is when many people double down, trying to force the we back into existence. They remind their partner of shared memories, of commitments made, of promises once spoken. They try to insert themselves back into the story. But here's the painful truth: when someone has decided to see only me, no amount of reminding will make them want we again. Because for the avoidant, we feels like a loss of freedom, a risk of being consumed, a weight they no longer want to carry. The shift in language is not just words, it's energy. Words reveal mindset, and mindset reveals direction. When their words no longer include you, it's because their future no longer does either. And if you cling to the illusion of we when they've already chosen me, you end up betraying yourself. The lesson here is not to beg to be written back into their story, but to write your own. Because once we becomes me, the chapter with them is already closed, and it's time for you to open a new one. Silence can mean many things in a relationship. Sometimes it's a pause to cool down after conflict. Sometimes it's a way to gather thoughts before speaking. But when an avoidant reaches the point where silence replaces truth, when they no longer use words to connect, explain, or bridge the gap, that silence is no longer a pause, it's a permanent goodbye in disguise. It's easy to mistake it for calmness, to tell yourself they just need time to open up, but deep inside you can feel it. This silence doesn't feel like reflection, it feels like erasure. Avoidants often struggle with vulnerability, but even in their fear, there are usually moments when they let you in, when they attempt to explain their need for space, or when they return after withdrawing. Those moments, however brief, are a sign that they still value the bond enough to maintain it. But when the silence becomes heavy, unbreakable, and stretched over days, weeks, or even months, that's when you know the truth. They are no longer trying to protect the relationship. They are trying to avoid it altogether. Their silence is not about needing space. It's about building distance. You may try to fill the gap with your own words. You send long messages, pour out your emotions, ask questions, plead for clarity. And what do you get in return? Nothing. Or worse, you get one-word replies that say everything without saying anything. Yeah, fine, okay. That's not communication, that's disengagement. That's the sound of someone who has already left emotionally, but hasn't yet given you the courtesy of closure. This is one of the most painful places to be, because silence can feel like torture. Unlike a fight where you at least know where the other person stands, silence leaves you in limbo. It forces you to carry the weight of both sides of the relationship while the avoidant sits in the shadows, offering nothing. And if you're not careful, you'll mistake this silence for a challenge, believing that if you just say the right thing, if you just wait long enough, the words will return. But they won't. When avoidants reach the point where silence has replaced truth, their decision has already been made. The hard reality is this: silence is an answer. And the answer is no. No to repair, no to connection, no to returning. It may not be spoken, but it is loud and clear. And the more you try to break it, the more you realize you're talking to someone who has already left the conversation for good. That is when you must stop fighting the silence and start listening to it, because it's telling you everything you need to know. One of the most defining traits of avoidance is their push and pull cycle. They get close, feel overwhelmed, and then retreat. For many people in relationships with avoidance, this cycle becomes familiar. You learn to expect the withdrawal, but you also learn to expect the return. Even though it hurts, a part of you clings to the hope that after the distance, they'll eventually come back around, and often they do. They resurface, test the waters, and reconnect just enough to keep the relationship alive. But the moment that cycle breaks, the moment they pull away and do not return, that's when you know they're gone for good. It can be disorienting at first because your mind is conditioned by the cycle. You think they've pulled away before. This isn't new. They just need time. Days go by, then weeks, and the silence stretches longer than ever before. You wait, you check your phone, you replay memories in your head, all while convincing yourself that the familiar pattern will repeat. But this time, it doesn't. And the more time passes, the more obvious it becomes. Their absence is not a pause, it's permanent. The difference here is subtle but crucial. When avoidants are still invested, they distance themselves as a way to regulate their emotions, but they always circle back. There's still a tether, still a sense that the connection matters, even if it's unstable. But when that tether is cut, when they no longer see a reason to return, you're left waiting for someone who has no intention of showing up. It's not that they're taking space, it's that they've already moved on internally, even if they haven't said it out loud. This is where many people lose themselves, because they keep waiting for the comeback. They stay frozen in place, believing that patience will eventually bring the avoidant back into their arms. But the truth is, once an avoidant decides not to return, no amount of waiting, pleading, or proving your worth will make a difference. Their decision is final, even if it's never spoken. And the longer you wait, the more you rob yourself of the chance to heal, rebuild, and open your heart to someone who actually chooses to stay. When an avoidant no longer returns after pulling away, it's the clearest sign you'll ever get. It means the cycle is broken, the door is closed, and the story with them has ended. You can either keep waiting at that door, or you can turn and walk toward the life that's waiting for you beyond it. There comes a point in every difficult relationship where your mind argues one thing, but your heart whispers another. You analyze every detail, replay every conversation, and convince yourself that maybe you're overthinking. Maybe you're being too sensitive. Maybe if you just hold on a little longer, things will change. But deep down, your intuition is screaming the truth. You already know they're gone. And when it comes to an avoidant who has shut down, erased you, and walked away emotionally, that inner knowing is the most powerful compass you have. The challenge is that intuition doesn't always shout, it often whispers. It shows up as that heavy feeling in your chest, that tightness in your stomach, that sense of emptiness when you're with them. It's the subtle ache you feel when their words say, "I care," but their actions scream, "I'm done." You can try to ignore it, bury it, or silence it with hope, but the truth is, your body and your spirit already know what your mind is afraid to admit. That gut feeling is never random. It's the truth trying to set you free. Too many people betray themselves by silencing that intuition. They keep asking for signs, for proof, for a dramatic goodbye, as if closure has to come from the avoidant. But closure doesn't always come in words. It often comes in the quiet awareness that your soul has already received the answer. The danger of ignoring this is that you end up stuck in limbo, waiting for external confirmation when the internal confirmation has been with you all along. Your intuition is not the enemy, it's your greatest ally. It's the part of you that sees through the excuses, through the patterns, through the temporary pullbacks that once gave you hope. It tells you when the wall has become permanent, when the silence has become final, when the cycle has truly ended. And the moment you stop fighting it, the moment you lean into it, you reclaim your power. Because intuition isn't just about recognizing the end, it's about guiding you to a new beginning. If you've ever felt that deep, unshakable sense that someone is gone even while they stand in front of you, trust it. That feeling is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's the voice inside that refuses to let you waste your life waiting for someone who has already left. And when you honor it, you stop chasing what's dead and start choosing what's alive. You stop holding on to a ghost and start holding on to yourself. And that choice, more than anything, is the beginning of your true freedom. The truth is, when an avoidant reaches the point where their walls are permanent, when they erase you, when they stop fighting, when their body stays but their soul is gone, when we turns into me, when silence replaces truth, when they stop returning after pulling away, and when your intuition confirms what you already know, you have to face reality with courage. This is not about weakness, it's about awareness. It's not about losing them, it's about finding yourself. Because the greatest pain is not that they are gone, it's that you keep waiting for someone who has already chosen to leave. Every fiber of you wants to hold on. You remember the good times, the laughter, the connection, and you think if you can just remind them, if you can just prove your love, they will come back. But love doesn't work like that. Love requires presence, commitment, and truth. If they have chosen to run, to silence, to erase, then you cannot force them back into something their soul has already abandoned. And the more you chase, the more you lose yourself. The freedom begins the moment you stop fighting for their return and instead fight for your own healing. You see, the end of their love is not the end of yours. You are not empty because they left. You are not broken because they shut down. You are not unworthy because they turned away. What they could not hold, someone else will cherish. What they ran from, someone else will run toward. And most importantly, what they rejected is the very thing you must now embrace within yourself. Your power, your value, your worth. This is the turning point where your story stops being about who left and starts being about who you become. So don't waste another day staring at the closed door, hoping it will open again. Don't let their silence become your prison. Don't let their absence steal your presence. You deserve more than a half love, more than breadcrumbs, more than waiting in the shadows for someone who has no intention of returning. The greatest comeback is not them walking through that door. It's you walking out of it with your head held high, ready to step into a life filled with people who choose you, respect you, and love you fully. And that is the ultimate truth. When an avoidant does these things, they're never coming back. But maybe that's the greatest gift, because their absence is the doorway to your growth, their silence is the invitation to your strength, and their goodbye is the beginning of your rebirth. Don't cry for what's gone, rise for what's coming. Your story isn't over, it's just beginning. And this time, it's not about chasing someone who runs. It's about becoming someone who never has to beg for love again. Thank you so much for watching till the end. If this message touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support means everything. Remember, you deserve love, respect, and a connection that lifts you higher. Stay strong, stay true to yourself, and never settle for less than your worth. Until next time, take care of your soul, keep growing, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye. Goodbye for now, and remember, your comeback story is just beginning.